Time has arrived to convene the meeting. Welcome to the February 8th meeting of the Planning Commission. And at this time, I'd like to call on opening announcements. Before we begin the agenda, the Wichita-Sedgwick County Metropolitan Area Planning Commission and the Wichita-Sedgwick County Board of Zoning Appeals would like to take...
Just a moment. I think I'll get the script. Hang on.
For those in attendance, copies of the agenda for today's meeting, the public...
Okay, we'll do this the old-fashioned way. Let's see. Before we begin the agenda, the Wichita-Sedgwick County Metropolitan Area Planning Commission and the Wichita-Sedgwick County Board of Zoning Appeals would like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone to this public hearing. For those in attendance, copies of the agenda for today's meeting, the public hearing procedure, and Planning Department staff reports on all agenda items are available in the lobby. The Planning Commission's and the BZA's bylaws limit the applicant on a zoning subdivision or variance application and his or her representatives to a total of 10 minutes of speaking time at the start of the hearing on that item, plus up to 2 minutes at the conclusion of that hearing. All other persons wishing to speak on agenda items are limited to 3 minutes per person. However, if they feel that it is needed and justified, the chairman may extend these times by up to 2 minutes. All speakers are requested to state his or her name and address for the record when beginning to speak. When you are finished speaking, please share your name, address, and the case number on the sheet provided in the room. This will enable staff to notify you if there are any additional proceedings concerning that item. All speakers at the podium, please remove your face mask before speaking into the microphone. Please note that all written and visual materials you present to the Commission and the Board will be retained by the Secretary as part of the official record. If you are not speaking, but wish to be notified about future proceedings on a particular case, please provide your contact information to the Planning Department. The Planning Commission and the Board are interested in hearing the views of all persons who wish to express themselves on all the agenda items. However, we ask that all speakers please be as courteous and concise as possible and avoid long repetitions of facts or opinions which have already been stated. For your information, the Wichita City Council has adopted a policy for all city zoning items. A copy of this policy is available from the planning staff. The City Council relies on a written record of the Planning Commission hearings and does not conduct its own additional public hearings on these items. The decision of the BZA is final. Any appeal of a decision of the BZA is to the District Court. Thank you.
Can you do that again, please?
Well done. Before we do a roll call, I would like to welcome our newest member, Brian Fry. Welcome, and your expertise and experience will be greatly appreciated on this commission. I'd also like to take a minute to thank Mike Green for his service. Mike spent many years working with the city in the engineering department, I believe, and his expertise and knowledge was very helpful on the council, and we appreciate his service. So with that, let's have a roll call.
Yes, sir. Dool.
Here.
Foster is absent. McKay.
Here.
Fry. Bill Johnson is absent. Blick.
Here.
Nix.
Here.
Fox.
Here.
Warren.
Here.
Joe Johnson is absent.
Present.
Miles. Zimbelman. Aldrich.
Here.
Williams Bay.
Here.
Sir, I show 3 members absent, 11 members present.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is approval of the meeting minutes for January 11. I show that Fox and Nix were absent and Fry would be abstaining.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a move from Miles and a second from Mr. Williams Bay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Abstain.
You were not there?
Correct.
Okay.
And Nix.
Right. So next we have the approval of the minutes for January 25th, and that has been deferred to the next meeting. There is no BZA meeting today. So with that, we'll move into the agenda to see who we can take on consent. First, we have subdivisions, sub 2023-00062, one-step final plat near 21st Street and North Mays Road. Is there anyone on the commission that wants to hear this case? Is there anyone from the public that would like to hear this case? If not, we'll take that one on consent. On item 2.2, do we want to hear that case since there's been a change on it? Scott?
Sir, what I would offer is, Greg, since there has been a change since the subdivision committee last saw this one, Greg, maybe if you could provide just a quick highlight on what that change is, and then that would allow you to make a decision about whether or not you would like to hear that item fully.
Great. You want to enlighten us?
Greg Sharon, planning staff for subdivision 2024-0001. The reason for presenting this is because after the original plat was a 2-lot subdivision, and after the subdivision committee approved and the staff report was prepared, the agent came back and wanted to create an additional lot. So that's now gone from 2 lots to 3 lots. And if you could go to the preliminary plan. Next screen. So where you see lot 1 and 2, the original subdivision, that was lot 1. And so they just split that 1 lot into 2 lots. And since they did that, it doesn't meet the 2.5 times lot width to depth ratio. So one of the reasons to present this is that the Plan Commission would have to approve of a waiver from that, the lot depth width ratio.
Mr. Aldridge?
A quick question, is there any issues with any access?
No, this was routed out to all the departments, and their comments didn't change from the original 2-lot subdivision. So the accesses are approved according to County Public Works.
Okay, I don't have any further questions.
Scott, did you have a comment?
No, it's just, I think that's enough detail to give you highlights about what the changes were. And now we will look to you about whether or not you want to take it on consent or hear the item.
Okay, is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case?
Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Warren.
I rely on subdivision committee quite a bit on things like this. This seems like a big change. I want to poll the subdivision committee and see if they're satisfied, then I'll be satisfied. But that seems like a significant change to throw on us right before a meeting.
I'm good with it.
Is there anyone on the subdivision committee that
I guess
opposes
everybody-
this
Yeah. that'd be-
request?
Okay, I'm fine.
Is there anyone from the public that would like to hear this case? Then we will take that item on consent. So I hear a motion to approve these two items.
Motion to approve 2.1 and 2.2.
Just a reminder that there is the waiver that goes with that, so include that in your motion.
Including the waiver also.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Blick, a second by Ms. Miles. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We have one vacation request. It's vacation 2023-00056 located generally in the area of North Rock Road and K96. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? Is there anyone from the public that would like to hear this case? If not, we'll take that on consent. We need a motion on that.
Move to approve item 3.1 per staff comments.
Second.
Have a motion by Fox and a second by Williams Bay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Moving on. Item 4.1 is 2023-00041, generally located on North Tyler Road and West Central. Is there anyone on the Planning Commission that would like to hear this case? Is there anyone here from the public that would like to hear this case? If not, we'll take that one on consent. Next up, 4.2 is zoning 2023-00073, and that is located near North Waco and 9th Street. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? We'll hear that case. Next, 4.3, we will hear this case because staff is recommending denial. 4.4, zoning case 2023-00077 at 21st Street and North Hillside. Anyone on the commission want to hear that case? Is there anyone present from the public that would like to hear this case? If not, we'll take that on consent. Next is 4.5, zoning case 2023-00078, and that is located near First Street and North Poplar. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear that case? Is there anyone from the public that would like to hear that case? If not, we'll take that on consent.
Move to approve items 4.1, 4.4, and 4.5.
Second.
Mr. McKay moved and Mr. Blick seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. So with that, we will go back to item 4.1.
Good afternoon, everyone. Christina Reith with planning staff. This is case number zone 2023-00073. The applicant is requesting a zone change from MF 29 Multifamily Residential District and NO Neighborhood Office District to GC General Commercial District and a waiver of the compatibility standards for the rear property line in order to allow warehousing and office flex space building with 3 rental spaces and roll-up doors. This property is 0.41 acres in size and is located on the east side of Waco Avenue, just south of West 9th Street North. The subject site is currently undeveloped, and according to our aerials, it's been undeveloped since 1983. The applicant is, so the reason for this request is because the applicant is primarily interested in an office development with roll-up doors. Now, when you have roll-up doors, according to our unified zoning code, that is considered to be warehousing. So to mitigate some of the potential impacts associated with GC General Commercial, which is a very high intense zoning, staff is recommending a protective overlay that limits some of the uses on site. You'll see in the report here the difference in development standards for lot area and setbacks and height from the current zoning to the requested zoning. So after speaking with the applicant and speaking about their development plans for this site, the applicant is requesting a waiver of the compatibility setback standards for just the rear property line because of the size of the proposed development on site. However, they are okay with the compatibility height standards. They're looking to build a space that's no taller than 45 feet in height, which is what the compatibility height standards are now. Because the property abuts residential zoning, it will need to provide screening and landscaping in accordance with the Wichita Landscape Ordinance and the Unified Zoning Code. Another reason that they want to waive these compatibility setback standards is in order to implement some of that landscaping that's required. So the requested zone change is in conformance with the Community Investments Plan. The 2035 Future Growth Concept Map recommends a subject site as appropriate for commercial uses. It's also in conformance with the locational guidelines of the Community Investments Plan. They encourage infill development that maximizes public investment in existing and planned infrastructure and services. And so they're proposing infill development on a vacant lot. When we look at the comprehensive plan's land use compatibility guidelines, they suggest that neighborhoods serving retail and office uses and high density residential uses can be appropriate along arterial streets such as Waco on small infill sites near residential uses or through conversions of residential structures if appropriate site design features limit traffic, noise, lighting, and adverse impacts on surrounding residential. So this will be an infill site along an arterial street, and screening and landscaping should mitigate some of the adverse impacts associated with the proposed zone change. When we look at the places for people plan, it's in conformance with that plan. So there's a list of strategies within that plan. So strategy number 6 is to encourage infill and redevelopment that is contextual to the environment that in which it's occurring. So directly north of the subject site, if we look at the zoning map here, what's highlighted in pink is already zoned general commercial. To the east of that, you have limited industrial. That's an lavender color. The brownish grayish color is B multifamily. And then just east of that in white, we see single family zoning. So we're seeing this gradual restrictive zoning as we go farther east. And then if we look at Waco Avenue, that is zoned TF3, there's a place of worship there. So we're seeing this gradual transition between the general commercial to the north without any protective overlay. And then for this one, we're proposing GC with a protective overlay, and then it goes down from there. It's not in conformance with the Midtown Neighborhood Plan because the plan emphasizes commercial development such as like near 13th and Broadway. And if the plan's future land use map identifies a subject site as appropriate for professional and administrative services on the northern half of the subject site, and then multiplex 4 or less on the southern half of the site. So while they're proposing, office uses with roll-up doors. We are technically, supporting warehousing as a permitted use on site, and warehousing would not be in conformance with this future land use. So based on the information available prior to the public hearings, planning staff recommends that the request be approved, subject to protective overlay number 428, which states that uses are limited to those permitted by right in neighborhood retail, in addition to warehousing as defined by the zoning code. This recommendation is based on the golden rules. I will skip ahead to the last golden rule. At the time the staff report was prepared, staff received one phone call from the public who was curious about the development application. That still stands. This did go to the district advisory board on Monday, and they recommended approval of this application subject to the protective overlay and staff comments. And let's go through some of the site photos here. So here's an aerial of the subject site. Next slide, please. This is the Wichita Future Growth Concept Map. The pink that you see there is commercial. Next slide, please. This is looking east towards the site, so you can see the apartments in the back. The patch of grass is the site in question. Next slide, please. This is looking north away from the site. The wall that you see there is the property that is currently zoned GC. Next slide, please. This is looking south away from the site. Next slide, please. And this is looking west away from the site across Waco, and you can see the place of worship there. And with that, I will stand for questions.
Mr. Nix.
Did you hear anything from the church at all?
No.
No.
I watch too much Dateline. Is there restrictions on what can be housed in a warehouse unit like this? Like, chemicals, meth labs?
I don't have the answer to that at this time.
Serial killer bodies. I
I'll
just
defer
watched
to
that
the
last
zoning
night.
administrator on that answer.
Okay, I just have to ask.
Where to go with that one?
I don't. There probably are, but not at this level, shall we say? I'm sure there might be fire code requirements and building requirements and such.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I really just last night watched where the warehouse was where the serial killer operated. And yeah, there's a lot of residential around there. Okay.
We have any other questions from the commission, interesting or otherwise? If not, we'll call on the agent or applicant to give a presentation. You have 10 minutes. Please give us your name and address.
Good afternoon. My name's Leon Mader. My address is 967 North Back Bay Boulevard, just 2 blocks from this site. That's how we became aware of it. I'm acting as agent for the current owner because we will be purchasing this upon zoning approval for development. I really don't have much of a presentation. It's an orphan lot. It's been vacant for 40 years. We think we have a use that can work. We again, live very close, very sympathetic to what goes on in the neighborhood. And our intent is always to be a very good neighbor. Throw in just a little plus for me. My wife is a landscape architect, and this is the first project she's done for me that I will let her go beyond the minimum requirement. I've actually told her there will be no limits on what you want to do on this property because it is 2 blocks from home. It's
Okay,
as honest as I can be.
Now I'm happy. Serial killers don't like pretty places.
And I really have no presentation. So any questions?
Yeah, sir, do you support and agree with staff recommendations and comments as given?
Absolutely. My first request was for LC. Conversation said, well, that's not going to work. Suggested GC could work. Well, I don't really want GC because I don't want the property to be used for a lot of things that would fall under GC. I live 2 blocks away if we don't own it. It works well. What they've suggested works wonderful for us. We don't want any parking on any work on site, any storage on site, any automotive on site. We don't want any of that.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Are there any other questions from the commission members? If not, thank you, sir. Is there anyone from the public present that would like to speak on this case? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission for discussion and action.
Move to approve per staff comments.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Williams Bay, second from Mr. Nix. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those nay. Carried. I believe that concludes the cases we had on the agenda today.
Mr.
All right, this is zone 2023-00076. The applicant is requesting a zone change from neighborhood retail, and there's a small sliver on the south end here that's the multifamily, to limited commercial district to allow for commercial development. This property is a little bit over half an acre in size and is located on the southwest corner of West 13th Street North and North Waco Avenue. It is currently developed with a youth center and insurance office. The buildings on site there were constructed around 1920. You see in your report here, there's a table of the development standards that would change should the zone change request be approved. The requested zone change would also permit more sites, more uses on site than the current zoning. Because the property abuts residential zoning, it will need to provide screening and landscaping. There are no zoning cases associated with this property. And it's in conformance with the Community Investments Plan. The 2035 Future Growth Concept Map recommends the subject site as appropriate for commercial uses. So they're proposing a commercial space. However, it is not in conformance with the Midtown Neighborhood Plan. The plan, as I mentioned in the previous case, it emphasizes commercial development near 13th and Broadway, with Broadway as the main commercial corridor. And then the plan's future land use map identifies the subject site as primarily appropriate for neighborhood retail uses. This is what it's zoned now. So the requested zone change would allow for higher intensity commercial uses and will deviate from the preferred land use according to the Midtown Plan. So based upon the information available prior to the public hearings, planning staff recommends that the request be denied. However, should the MAPC find that the zone change be approved, it is recommended that the MAPC adopt alternative findings supporting the recommendation, and we suggest the following protective overlay. So one, signage shall be restricted to the rules and regulations set forth in the Wichita Sign Code for NR zoning. The following uses are prohibited on site: correctional placement residence, hotel motel, pawn shop, service station, and vehicle repair limited. And then drive-through speakers must be placed on the north side of the property. So a big reason that we came to this conclusion is for denial is because of, what the Midtown Plan touched upon. It's, because they don't really have a specific plan for development, they're trying to make it more marketable to potential buyers. We see that the uses that are, or the zoning that's there now is appropriate for that particular site. This did go to the District Advisory Board on Monday, and they recommended approval subject to a different protective overlay. It's similar to the one that I handed out that should be in front of you guys. So Kim, you may need to help me with this one because I think I wrote it down correctly, but I just want to make sure. So they proposed a protective overlay with the following uses prohibited on site, and it mostly follows this paper here. So cemetery, correctional placement residence limited in general, hotel or motel, service station, car wash, vehicle and equipment sales, financial institution, entertainment establishment, nightclub in the city, and tavern and drinking establishment. They kept the provision that drive-through speakers must be placed on the north side of the property. And the third one that they implemented for this protective overlay is that no signage shall face residential buildings as defined in the zoning code. So we didn't have access to the code at that time. We weren't sure if signage could face residential buildings. So we added that to the protective overlay just to make sure that it's there. So so the difference between this one and so the protective overlay that was approved by the DAB and the sheet that you have in front of you that was provided by the applicant is you'll notice that they wrote payday loan and title loan establishment. Now, I spoke with the zoning administrator and we cannot separate, when it comes to financial institutions, we cannot separate banks from payday loans and title loan establishments. So with that, we will go to the site photos. This is an aerial map of the subject site. This is the future growth concept map that identifies the subject site to be appropriate for commercial. This is looking west towards the site on Waco. Next slide, please. This is looking north towards the site. Next slide, please. This is looking east towards the site. Next slide, please. This is looking south towards the site. This is looking across 13th Street here. Next slide, please. This is looking north away from the site. Next slide, please. This is looking east away from the site. I don't know if I have any, do I have more photos? Yes, looking south away from the site. Next slide, please. Looking west away from the site. Next slide, please. That concludes my photos, and with that, I will stand for questions.
Mr. Nix.
So this must have been a difficult decision for the staff, I would assume.
Yes.
I don't know whether you're all in agreement when you sat around the table and talked about this one, but on the just across the street on the southeast corner, you've got Walgreens. I assume that's limited commercial.
Yes.
Over on the northeast side, you've got Davis Liquor Store.
Correct.
I assume that's limited commercial.
Yes, all, so if we look at the zoning map here, everything you see in red is limited commercial.
Except on the southwest corner.
Correct.
What's the Rent-A-Center zoned at, right next door?
That is zone neighborhood retail. So if you
That's
can
no
see my mouse
retail.
here, this is zone neighborhood retail and this is the furniture store
Okay,
or rental
I
store.
see.
Yep.
Right.
Any other questions to staff? Mr. Aldridge.
Yeah, I'm looking at this, and I'm also looking at the case we just got done hearing in regards to, to Midtown. And, to me, there's no difference between the two, especially when you're sitting there looking at what this request is. You've got LC right across the street, and even got LC with a PO on there. So I don't understand why this couldn't go through, or why staff wouldn't recommend it with an LC with a protective overlay. Because you can't, again, you're surrounded by there. And would you say that this area also is in a transitioning, or has been transitioning over the last several years? There's not that much difference between 13th and Waco, or what's going on over 13th and Broadway and stuff like that. I think that, for staff to recommend denial, I think there's other ways that this thing can be worked out on that. I just have, you're saying on both deals that it meets the community investment plan and the places to go, this, that, and the other. But then both of them, it shows where it's not in conformance with the Midtown. And, you're recommending approval on one, denial on the other. And, another question I've got is, how old is the Midtown plan? When's the last time that's been looked at or revised?
So I will defer to Scott on the first question, then I can answer the second question as well if you'd like.
Sure. There's like 5 questions in there, so I'm going to try and tackle those. In terms of the difference on this one in the case that you just heard, the significant difference for us was, number one, that we had a specific use for the first case, and the applicant had proposed that we want to use it for exactly this. And I would speak to the fact that they are in agreement with the protective overlay and indicated that they're residents in the area, to say that that case was a little bit different than this one, where we didn't have anything specific. We just had a blanket rezoning that was requested. The other challenge that we've got is, yes, the neighborhood plan in terms of when it was developed, that was back in around 2003, 2004. There's been quite some time since then. In fact, the Midtown neighborhood has reached out to us and they've asked for us to update that plan, because they're interested in making sure that it's more in line with what's taking place today. However, it puts us in a little bit of an awkward spot, because we have a plan that provides us guidance for this specific neighborhood, and it says, this is not an appropriate use. In fact, it was rezoned to be in line with that plan, and yet, on this case, the one on Broadway, the one on Waco, we've not had the neighborhood association come into the meetings and participate in the zoning action. So it leaves us as staff in a little bit of an interesting spot where we've got a plan, but we don't have the neighborhood association weighing in. So, and then let's see, what else did we have? I think the other case too, another distinction on that one was just the adjacency of what is adjacent to the property in terms of the GC being directly north of it. Whereas with this one, you've got residential. Now I know, and has been explained, this was a big area of discussion for staff, because you've got LC immediately across the streets. And so there were a lot of discussion, a lot of debate. This is a tough one for staff. And I think that's why in the recommendation you saw that we had recommendation for denial, but if you choose to recommend approval, here are some conditions that we would encourage you to consider.
Well, additionally to that, you've also got the district advisory board has recommended approval on both of these.
Yeah.
And some people think that they've got a lot of weight and some people don't. But here, that's a residential area or supports most of the time right there, and they're recommending approval. Looking at the additional sheet that staff gave us regarding the 2 different items on there, I do have a question on where it says payday loan and title. Did you say that you can't eliminate that from the requirement, or it can be?
We cannot separate banks, like traditional financial institutions, from payday loan establishments. So this sheet here talks about payday loan, title loan establishment. That would have to be, if you were to recommend it be included in a protective overlay, it would have to be financial institution.
Okay, so you'd have to just change the wording and put financial institution on there.
Correct.
And then again, you're looking at the surrounding area, because I think you mentioned signage and stuff. Well, there are signs at these other businesses, aren't there?
I know, there is signage at Walgreens. I can't verify for sure whether the signage at Walgreens faces the residential properties to the south, but I can look into that.
Yeah, I just don't think how you can eliminate saying you can't have signs when the other businesses around there are having the signs.
Okay.
It's just my statement.
Wouldn't there have to be screening adjacent to the residential in the event that whatever gets added there?
Yes.
Christina, do we know, are there specific least desired uses for this area in the neighborhood plan?
Yes, there are a list of preferred uses or what they would like to see prohibited in the plan. I don't know the list off the top of my head. I do recall that they wanted to say like no more liquor stores. I remember that standing out, but I mean, that's already permitted in neighborhood retail. It's not a specific permitted use. It's just, I think it's just under retail, if I'm not mistaken.
Christina, thank you for the presentation. A couple of quick questions. Did the neighborhood association weigh in at the DAB meeting, the Midtown Neighborhood Association?
No.
They did not. Okay, thank you. Secondly, I just want to make sure I'm clear on this restriction use. The DAB voiced no financial institutions.
Correct.
This recommendation is saying payday loan, title loan.
Correct.
Correct. Can both be included in the restricted?
Well, payday loan falls under financial institution.
Okay.
Did I answer your question?
So by the DAB recommendation, no bank could go in there.
Correct.
Okay, so in order for a bank to be allowed, we would have to change the language to say payday loan, title loan establishment to prevent that. But to allow a bank, would have to be that specific.
We cannot separate the uses.
You can change.
So
it
the
to
council has
financial
done this
institution.
before, though. Once it goes to the council level, there has been times when the council has said no payday loan, no title loan establishments. So this is very unclear.
That's absolutely correct. Council has imposed a standard that says no payday loans. That's, the name of one particular business of that industry. It would be like saying all fast food restaurants except McDonald's. I mean, that's the other way to say it. Or no fast food restaurants except McDonald's. And so because it falls under the definition of financial institution, it would be like saying, well, no savings and loans, but banks are okay. It's the kind of same thing. But yes, it has been added at council as a condition.
So has the council been in violation of this by doing that?
It has never been sought to be enforced or challenged.
Hello?
Are there any other questions of staff at this point? If there's no more questions of staff, we'll call on the agent or applicant, and you will have 10 minutes. Please give us your name and address.
Thank you. Kim Edgington, representing the applicant for this property. My address 2532 North Cardinal Drive, Wichita, Kansas. There's a lot to unwrap here, so I'm going to just kind of start from the beginning, which was the DAB meeting. And at the DAB meeting, there were some recommendations made, comments made that the DAB would prefer there not to be any sort of title loan businesses, and we are absolutely agreeable to that. So whether that has to be done in a different manner, whether it's a deed restriction, whatever it takes, we would like to try to work that out. We would not like to eliminate banks and financial institutions from the allowed uses, though, because those are actually already allowed now under the NR zoning. But the NR zoning itself is a highly restrictive category. It's very limiting as far as uses, as far as scale of uses, such as restaurants. No drive-throughs are allowed. So we are asking for this zone change to really match the character of the rest of the intersection, which is very highly commercial in nature. It does meet the comprehensive plan. It meets the Places for People plan. The Midtown Association plan is a fairly outdated plan, and we feel like by providing the protective overlay that we have given you does address a lot of those concerns that the Midtown Neighborhood Association has by limiting. We actually added quite a few uses that we would choose to limit beyond what staff had even recommended. And incidentally, the DAB member that made the motion to approve the zoning change and not limit signage to NR only was the Midtown Association representative on the District Advisory Board. So we are asking that that signage limitation, as it was recommended by the DAB, not be included. The signage limitations for NR zoning are fairly extreme. Only 32 square feet of signage is allowed for NR zoning. If you look at what Walgreens has across the street, they have approximately 300 square feet of signage. So we don't feel like that's kind of a fair representation for one corner of this intersection to be appropriate for signage uses, rights of limited commercial, and this one not to be. And thank you for mentioning things like screening, because if this property is redeveloped, which the hope is that by allowing some additional uses, that it will become more marketable. A very good possibility that the building there on the corner will be removed, which would also trigger a lot more requirements for landscaping, parking lot screening, setbacks, could very well increase the safety at this intersection where you've got a sidewalk that's just right on 13th Street and some visibility issues. So we also see this as an opportunity to improve on that. So that, in conclusion, we have prepared the protective overlay that was presented to all of you at your spaces today, and that is what we would respectfully request that you consider in placing the protective overlay on this property with the zone change that will be substantially in conformance with all of the surrounding properties at this intersection.
Mr. Aldridge.
On the proposed protective overlay, it states on there, eliminating the payday loans and titles, this, that, and the other. Well, we've established that you can't do that. So it's either going to have to be stricken completely, or it's going to have to be added in there, the financial institutions. I guess since you're not wanting to exclude or limit the possibility of a potential bank right there, if this is approved, would you want to exclude financial institutions on that?
We would prefer not to, just because it is a currently allowed use even under the NR. We could have a bank. So whether we need to do that through a deed restriction where my client, the applicant, would voluntarily agree to restrict that particular type of use, we certainly could do that.
Yeah, I think legal had a question.
Yeah, I just want to make sure it's clear. The applicant or the property owner can restrict their own property through restrictive covenant or deed restriction. It's just that this board can't impose, you're not supposed to impose that restriction.
Yeah, and we are perfectly agreeable with doing that for that particular use. Since I get, that's another can of worms. I don't personally feel that a payday title loan fits the definition of a bank because its primary purpose is not as a depository institution. So I feel like there could be a separation of those types of uses between what is considered a bank. The zoning code definition of a bank says it is engaged primarily in depository financial transactions. This, a title loan, paycheck loan, does not fit that definition, in my opinion.
Okay, I guess question for legal. So the wording right there, payday loan / title loan establishment, would just need to be eliminated, correct?
That's correct, and they can assert that they're going to be doing that. And the reason why, I don't disagree necessarily that there could be a distinction drawn between these, but in our code, it falls under financial institutions. So we don't have unless we amend the code to break it into two different kind of definitions or something, we can't do that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the commission of staff? If not, thank you. We'll call now on anybody from the public. Excuse me, staff is the applicant. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this case? Anyone from the public? If not, we'll bring it back to the commission for discussion and action. Yes, Robert?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the request for LC Limited Commercial District and also adopt the proposed protective overlay, the two items that were given excluding the wording with payday loan / title loan establishment.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Yes, Mr. McKay.
This is a question to staff. If we do it the way the motion was made, can financial institutions, regardless if you name them or don't name them, be included automatically in the zoning?
They are. They would be allowed.
For my clarification, how are we addressing then the payday loans? If it's not a restriction on here, or the applicant said they would voluntarily agree to that with a deed restriction or whatever?
Yes, sir. So that would not be part of this action, but that would be something that they have volunteered. There would not be a requirement that they do that.
They can also
be part
do
of the
that.
motion.
Question is whether they can require a private deed restriction.
No, that you can't do that. It's same thing as leaving the original language of the protective overlay, the DAB in there. So it's just their statement they're going to do it, but you can't have anything that's, would require it.
Understood. It's documented in the minutes though, so. Okay, we have a motion.
I have a question to the motion.
Fry.
Mr. Aldrich, the staff recommended, if it was going to be approved, that the signage shall be restricted to the rules set in the NR zoning. Are you including that in your motion, or did you do that on purpose?
No, I'm not. What I'm doing is what was given to us as an alternative is what I'm
Thank you. I just want to be
going
clear.
by.
Thank you.
Also in your motion, did you cover the controversy on the sign size?
Yes, that's not in there.
Okay, are we satisfied? We have a motion and a second. Did we get those recorded? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ms.
I have a
Fox.
question. Can we request that planning amend the current zoning code to separate payday loans from financial institutions by definition?
You certainly may, and I've got that note to add that to the list of potential zoning code changes and updates. So we'll be visiting those with advanced plans as we try and prioritize our work plan for the next 12 months.
Can you also inform council?
You betcha.
You mean we're going
Mr. Chair, was that a 10-0 vote? Was that a 10-0?
We have 11-0, I believe.
Now we have gone through, we missing somebody? One last item. At the advanced plans meeting today, there was extensive discussion about the commercial solar panel issue coming up and the revision of the code to address that. And although I was there and it seemed like we got all the way through it, but there's going to be another meeting on the 15th, right, to take final action on that. And if any of you are interested, it will be coming before the Planning Commission, but I would encourage you to join advanced plans on the 15th.
Could we also receive minutes of your advanced plans meeting from today so that we can study up on what's being proposed?
Yes, you can, Scott.
And probably the fastest thing for us to do will be to send you a link to the video because it's available almost immediately. The minutes will take some time, so we will work on that. And if I could, sir, I'd also like to mention that because of the solar item on the February 22nd agenda, we have moved the location of the MAPC meeting to one floor above you right now. So it would be at the 3rd floor. So if you come, 2 weeks from now, just be prepared that there's one more flight of stairs to go. We're hoping that the AV works. Obviously today is a little bit of a challenge, so we will continue to work on that. We are working towards that goal of having that much larger space to have the meetings in, but it depends now on scheduling because some departments have booked it quite a ways out, so we're working with them. We will do everything in our power to ensure you that you are have the treatments and furniture that you are accustomed to. So we will work towards that.
Thanks, Scott. With that, the meeting is adjourned.